Hello and welcome in to the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, and joining me from beautiful Austin, Texas is senior writer Mike Craven. Craven, it's a little bit earlier today. We're recording Tuesday morning. I haven't even finished my full first round of Morning Joe, so I'm liable to say anything right now. But we're going to try to give the best preview possible.
We got to bring our own juice this morning.
BYOJ.
Yeah, coaches talk about, when you go into empty stadiums on the road, you got to bring your own juice. That's us this morning. I am not a coffee drinker. I am one of the only writers I know who does not intake caffeine. I drink one Dr. Pepper a day, so I do get some caffeine at like 2 or 3, but never been a coffee drinker.
Way to stand up against stereotypes, Craven.
That's right.
That's big of you.
Mm-hmm. No coffee, no cigarettes,
You're not going to need any coffee when you go to Baton Rouge this weekend to watch number 3 Texas A&M versus number 20 LSU. It's 6:30 p.m. on ABC. Aggies favored by 3.5. First off, how pumped are you to go watch this game in Death Valley?
Pretty excited. I've talked a lot before. My favorite part isn't the football, it's the atmosphere. I think it's better for the football. It's better on your couch. You can watch all the games. You can, you get better angles of the game you're actually watching. But the atmosphere and the experience of college football is, to me, what makes it my favorite sport. It's why I don't want to write about the NFL. I enjoy covering college football. The pageantry and the traditions and the tailgating. And I've always heard that LSU is top of the line with that. And I've been to UT games my whole life. I've gone to A&M games my whole life. I've been lucky enough to go to Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State over the last couple of years, but I haven't gone to a lot of SEC stadiums. Like, in fact, I don't think I've gone to a single one outside of the state. And so I'm excited to kind of experience this, something you hear about your whole life.
Well, you're going to see a bunch of antsy LSU fans, I think, because coming off that loss to Vanderbilt, the season is not going how they pictured. Brian Kelly era feels like, is it fair to say it's on the ropes? Do you think the Brian Kelly era? We were talking before we recorded. I almost don't think LSU should be ranked, and I don't know if I'm being too harsh by saying that.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue against somebody who didn't rank LSU if their helmet was different. They wouldn't be ranked, right? If they weren't in the SEC, they weren't the Tigers, they wouldn't be ranked. And so, that Clemson win has done them a lot of good, but you look at that Clemson team and they're not good. I mean, they just lost to SMU. SMU didn't get ranked because of it. And so I think that there's always this in the AP. I think one of the problems with the AP poll is that it's not volatile enough. People don't want to move it around too much week to week. They like to kind of stay in the same order that they have it. If you lose, you just drop 4 or 5 spots. If you win, you move up. Everybody just looks at the win-loss record. But if I had an AP ballot, LSU wouldn't be in mine.
Yeah, because they have beaten number 4 Clemson. We now know Clemson is not a good team. They beat Louisiana Tech. Florida has fired their coach. Southeastern Louisiana, I didn't know that was a football team.
Yeah, that's where my little brother played.
No kidding, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Died in, yeah.
Ole Miss, which they lost that game. Ole Miss is a good team. South Carolina is fallen off the map. Their offensive line cannot block for Lenore Sellers, and then lost to Vanderbilt. So, yeah, the resume is not good.
Yeah, to your point about Brian Kelly, I think he's more on the hot seat than people are talking about. And they still have to play A&M. They still have to go to Alabama. They still have to go to Oklahoma. If they lose all of those games, I don't think Brian Kelly is back, unless LSU just doesn't want to get into the coaching carousel when so many other jobs are open. But LSU is such a good job. You would think that they jump to the front of the line. If you're Brian Kelly, this kind of gets away from the game talk, but if you're Brian Kelly, I wonder if he's looking for a parachute, right? If he sees a job open like Penn State and it's like, I can restart the clock, get back to a part of the country that maybe likes me more or understands my personality more, or I could get away with kind of who I am a little bit more than I can in Baton Rouge. But this LSU team, I think it's been the story of his tenure so far is the roster looks better than the results. They have a quarterback that's supposed to be a first-round draft pick. We could debate whether we think Nussmeier is that type of player or not. But, they lost a lot on their offensive line, and they were one of the better portal teams. In the offseason, I think most people had them in Texas Tech ranked as the top 2 portal classes, and a lot of it was because LSU was supposed to fix their offensive line, and they haven't. Nussmeier's injured. Not explosive on that side of the ball. I think the defense is pretty good, but they just do not score enough points. When they beat Florida, for example, they turned Florida over 5 times and scored 20 points total. And so I think if you're A&M here, with your defense probably being your weakness, you like this matchup because what LSU doesn't do well offensively the most is run the ball. They are very bad running the football team. And I think right now, if you're A&M, that's your Achilles heel. And so LSU doesn't threaten that.
Yeah, I think Garrett Nussmeier is indicative of a larger trend of quarterbacks preseason we felt were going to be top 10 draft picks that have just not lived up to the hype for whatever reason. I mean, it's Arch, it's Cade Klubnik, it's Garrett Nussmeier. There's some other ones in there too. So yes, you're right. Good news for A&M because Mike Elko announced his weekly awards from last week's win over Arkansas. Offense was Marcel Reed. Defense, no one. Special teams, Bravion Rogers. Offensive lineman of the week, Chase Basantis. Defensive lineman of the week, no one. Said he didn't pick anyone from the defensive side because of how they played. So practice must be hell this week.
We've talked about it a few times, but I just find it so hilarious. Like after they beat Auburn 16-10, there was an offensive player of the week. Right? Like Mike Elko, if he's going to play a close game, he would rather it be 13-6 than 43-40. Like he's a defensive guy. And I think that's good if you're an Aggie fan, right? Like you like that because the offense has looked great. The defense is the one question mark you have specifically on the road. They hadn't played well at Notre Dame. They didn't play well at Arkansas. This game at LSU gives the defense an opportunity to really play well away from Kyle Field, and they need to show that. But I like my head coach, especially if he is the DC, being harder on the defense than he is on everyone else. Like you can tell he has spent his career trying to stop people from scoring, and it just absolutely burns him up when they can't do it.
Football is meant to be played 16-10. Football is not meant to be 48-45.
I agree with you. I understand why a coach like Elko would get frustrated with that kind of stuff. But I think the thing for A&M here, like they're the better football team, right? But it's hard week in, week out to play well. They're probably going to have a letdown. Like Aggies going 12-0, probably not in the cards. I don't know if anybody's going to go 12-0. Maybe Ohio State goes 12-0. I don't think anybody else goes 12-0. You're going to have a letdown game. Like when does it happen? Maybe it was Arkansas and they got away with it. But they haven't done well at LSU. Like I think it's been since 1995 or something like that, since A&M has won at Death Valley. Mike Elko talked in his press conference how he hasn't had a lot of success there. His first trip to LSU was to play the 2019 LSU team.
That's a tough one.
so a tough introduction to Death Valley. But this feels like the A&M's best opportunity to go on the road, beat a wounded LSU team. Nussmeier's injured. He can't move around as much. That run game stinks, as I talked about. The A&M defense should have a really good time. It comes down to Marcel Reed in this offense. And so far, Marcel Reed in this offense has been the thing you can count on the most.
Yeah, and linebacker Whit Weeks is iffy too. He's their stud on the defensive side. One of the starting tackles is out. So it's not just Nussmeier. It's a lot of the team is banged up and injured. I agree with you that A&M could have a letdown here coming up. I just don't know if it would be Baton Rouge, that atmosphere. Like if you can't get up for the LSU game in Baton Rouge, you don't have a pulse. And maybe they could fall flat just because the moment's big and they just don't execute in that hostile environment. But I would almost be more concerned about who's someone else coming up on their schedule, like a bottom
or something,
like a Kentucky or something like that, like Texas had.
Because I don't think the letdown will be they just sleepwalk through a game because A&M's schedule is not going to allow them to do that. Like they're at LSU, they're at Missouri, they're at Texas, South Carolina at home. Maybe that's the one where you kind of sleepwalk through. I think it's just one of those, like you're bound to have a bad game. We all have bad days, and it just takes 2 or 3 players having a bad game. Your left tackle getting beat, quarterback throwing a couple of interceptions, just some missed tackles defensively that become contagious. They've played really well. Like they've just played solid football games for the most part. And I just wonder if A&M is going to have one of those kind of, man, where did that performance come from?
South Carolina game I'm circling.
South Carolina at home may be that one. But
South Carolina is going to be like 3-8 in that game. And because their offensive line cannot block. I mean, they're turnstiles up there right now. But Lenore Sellers is liable to go off like Taylor Green did against the Arkansas A&M game. So that's what I'm circling.
I think for this one, you just can't Florida this if you're A&M. Like, it's turnovers are the only way that you lose this game. Like, you're going to have to give LSU really good field position and make mistakes on your own offensively for LSU to have a chance. I just don't think they can score enough against the Aggies defense to win this football game without some A&M help.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the Aggies give them help and lose this game, we might be talking about Mike Elko not being the coach anymore at A&M. Mike Elko on his name being linked to the Penn State job. It's hilarious how you guys being the media, cover coaches. 3 weeks ago, I was getting fired. Now I'm getting hired. Who said that? Who said 3 weeks ago? I checked 3 weeks ago. It was Mississippi State, the win 31-9. Who was saying Mike Elko should be fired?
Yeah, I mean, he won at Notre Dame, and that was like the first ranked win on the road in non-conference since like before R.C. Slocum or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why coaches are so bad at this question.
You'd think they would. He had practice at Duke, and he flubbed it at Duke. I saw former Shahan Jayaraja, who used to work at Dave Campbell's, now works at CBS Sports. He pulled up that old transcript of the Duke question when he was asked this, and he was basically like, Mike Elko just turned off my lights.
Yeah.
He was asked, he said, like, this is bad podcasting. What was the quote? He's like, they like to just make stories out of thin air, basically.
Yeah, and I get why fans, because you see some fans on Twitter that the reaction becomes, well, why even ask the coach that? You're not going to get a straight answer. Well, that's the job, bub. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to ask, even if you're not going to get the right answer. Like, you have to put them. I mean, A&M just had an experience with this with their baseball coach, right? Getting mad at a media member for asking a question and acting as if it was asinine to suggest that. And then he's meeting I almost called him DeLoss Dodds, meeting Chris Del Conte in a graveyard on the way to Austin. I don't think Mike Elko is leaving A&M because A&M is a really good job. Like, I think it's a better job than Penn State. And if it's not, it's at least on the same par to like, why go start over at Penn State? But this notion that the media makes this stuff up when coaches leave all the time after saying that they're not. Like, the next time a coach at a press conference goes, yeah, I'm listening to all offers, and if I can get a better job with more money and more resources and a better chance to win a national championship, I'm going to go take that job. Like, then maybe we would be making up stories if we covered it the way that we do. But they all lie through their teeth. Like, that's the job. Like, that's what they do, and it's our job to ask them the questions, and that's just how that goes. I love Mike Elko. Mike Elko's press conferences are one of my favorite things of the week. Like, I think he does a really good job, typically kind of throwing in some humor and not taking it too seriously. It kind of felt like hit dog holler a little bit on that one. I think coaches get really sensitive about this stuff, and it's because there's truth to it. Maybe not that he's going to go take the Penn State job, obviously, but that they're always looking and that their agents are always talking and there's always stuff going on behind the scenes. I took it as Mike Elko's looking for a contract extension.
He didn't deny it.
Well, one of the reasons Elko got hired is because he was affordable. A&M had to pay all that money to Jimbo Fisher. They weren't going to get locked into another really long kind of guaranteed contract that way. He wasn't going to have as much money as Jimbo was getting paid. He was going to have to prove it, and I think he's proving it. And unless this thing falls off the tracks, I guess the media cynic in me saw that as a coach who's up there finagling for more money and a longer contract.
As a media member, we the media, we deserve to get dunked on sometimes.
100%.
We make a lot of mistakes. But also, for an industry that gets dunked on a lot, it's tough when we get dunked on for stuff we don't deserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And some of it's just media illiteracy. But I guess what frustrates me as somebody who's in the weeds is like a lot of times these coaches are up there saying things that like my text messages would disagree with.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you don't talk about those things like until you're starting to get attacked. Right. And it's like, why, what are you doing? And so, yeah, it's the job of the agents of these coaches to go get more money, to get better contracts and all that kind of stuff. And so this idea that the media just makes up all of these rumors and like, it's like 30 coaches left after 2023. We're probably going to have 40 coaches either get fired or move after this season or during this season. It's not us, it's the industry.
I also think that, and I don't want to turn this into a whole media literacy podcast because that's, not what we're here for. But I think sometimes with Twitter X and message boards, the media gets associated with like Texas A&M lover 420, 100%. Who is in the third quarter of the Mississippi State game when Texas A&M has 13 points, like, man, fire Mock Elko. Right. And now the media was calling for his head.
Right. Or like at CFB Bulge says that Penn State, and it's like, like, oh man, I saw a report the other day. It's like, that's not a report, brother. That's a tweet, with a blue check mark next to it that it was paid for. So I just think it's one of those things where you're right. Media is too loose of a term. And the fan boards and the message boards and all that kind of stuff kind of make it to where there's a lot of outlandish stuff out there. But I would bet a decent amount of money that Mike Elko's agents is working, like they're not just sitting there like, well, we're just, like that's their job. And that's what they should do. I just wish these coaches took 10 seconds before the press conference to come up with a better response than they have.
Okay, let's go to Houston, the Cougars at number 24, Arizona State. That's, I think, the second most interesting game on this docket, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. Arizona State favored by 8.5 points. So Warren McVay passed away. He was the first African-American to play in an SEC stadium. Wondrous Warren was the nickname. Houston's going to wear decals for him. Just thought it was important to mention his passing because he was a trailblazer, and also because I'm going to bet Houston now because of it. Like, no way they're not covering on Warren McVay night.
Yeah, and the analytics don't like Houston very much. And I don't know exactly why that is. They're not the most explosive team in the world. But as I talked about in my 10 thoughts, Connor Wegman's wheels, his legs have kind of come back to life. He had 67 carries over 15 games in 3 years at A&M. He's had 66 this year. He had never ran over 8 times in one single game at A&M. He's done that 3 out of 7 times. He scored a touchdown on the ground in 5 of their 6 wins. So, I think Houston is one of those teams that isn't sexy, doesn't light up the stat box, but they're just kind of a Willie Fritz team that plays really good football and wins close games. The problem for the Cougars this week is that's exactly what Arizona State is. They beat TCU by 3. They beat Baylor by 3. They beat Texas Tech by 4. Their one Big 12 loss was when Sam Leavitt didn't play against Utah. And so I think this Arizona State team is really good. I think they have a chance to go back to the Big 12 championship. And I wonder for Houston, is this just a level above? Are they a tier 2 Big 12 football team and Arizona State is in tier 1? I think that may be the case this week.
You never want to, when you bet underdogs, you want to feel like they could win this game outright. I am more treading the line of, I think they're just not going to lose by 8.5 because Arizona State doesn't blow anybody out. You mentioned with all their games being close scores, but I agree with you. I think Houston is just not at this level yet that Arizona State is.
Yeah. And Arizona State played well against a Texas Tech offense that's going to look a lot like what Houston's going to do. Like with Will Hammond in there for Texas Tech, there's a lot of quarterback run game. Mac Leftwich actually talked on Monday that he wished he called less quarterback run game. We talked about that on the Sunday pod, that was probably going to be true. I think if you're Houston, you have to stick with what works for you, and that is Connor Wigman running the ball. But I wonder if this is just a bad matchup. It's on the road. Maybe you catch Arizona State a little unawares, right? Like they just had this big game against Texas Tech. They stormed the field. They almost killed somebody with the goalpost. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it. What happened?
The way that they lowered the goalpost so it didn't get taken away, it just kind of like flopped down like a guillotine, like boom. And there was like people around, and if it had hit somebody, it probably had taken somebody out.
15-yard penalty, $100,000 fine.
$100,000 fine. And so I think if you're Houston here, your hope is you catch Arizona State with their B game, because you can beat Arizona State if they don't play their best. I just think if both teams show up and play well, Arizona State has the advantage. I like Sam Leavitt. And the Sun Devils, I think they should just get the benefit of the doubt. Like, they win close games in conference. Like, they are kind of top dog in the Big 12 right now until they're not. And if you're Houston, I hope that they, just for Texas, they go and win this football game, or we're going to see a lot of – they're going to have a lot of Texas to Tempe stuff going on, because the Sun Devils would then be 5-0 against the Lone Star State. I told you on Sunday's pod, I had an assistant coach for Arizona State text me and say, like, we need to be on the power poll. If they beat Houston, I have to find a way to put them on there probably.
Oh my, there'd be a riot if Arizona State gets in on the power poll. But look, we might have that discussion if they
above
beat
Texas.
What?
Above Texas.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that goes without saying.
It's like A&M, Tech, or A&M, Arizona State, like Tech. So, yeah.
Also, I do want to shout out Houston's kicker, Ethan Sanchez, too, because we didn't really talk about the game-winning kick he had as much as I didn't talk about it as much as we should have. He's had 2 game-winning kicks on the seasons, 15 of 18. I think he's like back-to-back Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week. And also, Access Hollywood's Mario Lopez has addressed rumors that Ethan Sanchez is not his son because they look so much alike.
He should have kept that one going. Ethan Sanchez, first team midseason All-Texas kicker.
There we go. Represent. All right. Here's another first team midseason All-Texas player that didn't live up to the hype. Sawyer Robertson at Baylor. He's got another chance at number 21 Cincinnati, 3 p.m. on ESPN2. This is nice back to doubleheader ESPN2 action here. We got Baylor at number 21 Cincinnati, right into Houston at number 24 Arizona State. Bearcats are favored by 5.5 in this one. And in Cincinnati this year is just another example of you can never predict the Big 12. They are 6-1, undefeated Big 12 conference play, and have beaten number 11 Iowa State earlier this year.
Yeah, and if you're Baylor, this feels a lot like the road game at Texas Tech last year at 2-4, where your season is on a razor's edge and it's going to tip one way or the other. Because if you can go on the road and beat Cincinnati and play a complete football game and kind of surprise people in the way you did last year in Lubbock, maybe you get on a little bit of a roll. You got UCF at home after that. 2 of your last 3 of your last 4 are at home against McLean, although that hasn't been great for Baylor. They've been probably worse at home than they've been on the road. But in theory, they can make a little bit of run here and not salvage the season and be in Big 12 contention, but get to 7 wins, maybe get to 8 wins, make a bowl game, make it respectable. If they lose this one, they're 4-4. And one of the reasons I was high on Baylor going into the season was the second half of their schedule. Once they got past TCU, it felt like they were going to be favored in 4 of their last 5 games. No longer true, because as you pointed out, the Big 12 is insane and you never know who's going to be good or not. And that's on me for trying to predict that kind of stuff. But now you're going to be an underdog at Cincinnati. You're going to be an underdog probably at home against Utah, at Arizona, probably 50-50 on whether you're going to be favored. And then depending on how Houston finishes the season at home, you might be an underdog to Houston to close it out. So you went into this season hoping to play for a Big 12 championship. You're going to enter November hoping to make a bowl. And that, in year 6, not where you want to be.
Here's another indictment. Baylor is the number 98 ranked defense nationally, according to Bill Connolly's S&P Plus ratings. I don't know what all goes into that. I'm not smart enough to know what all goes into that. I just know it's not good because only Oklahoma State is worse among P4 defenses. And that's Dave Aranda's side of the ball. So maybe after this game, win or lose, we'll have our last Dave Aranda referendum, because I don't know what else we can say about it, Craven. Like, we've talked about this for a month straight now on every podcast. Every result is a referendum on the Dave Aranda era.
I think if they go on the road and they lose this game, it's done. Not like actually done. Like, I don't think Mac Rhodes pulls the trigger, especially in the middle of the football season. And I'm not convinced that he does it regardless. Like, maybe if they don't make a bowl game and the wheels completely fall off, he has no choice. But I don't know how you convince your fan base that it's going to get better. Like, I just don't. I don't know how you can sell the Baylor Nation on this if you can't go on the road and beat Cincinnati in year 6. Like, if you've gotten passed up by Cincinnati, you've gotten passed up by TCU and Tech and probably Houston and Utah. Like, where are you in the pecking order of the Big 12? It's not where you want to be for Baylor.
Yeah, and also you can see the fan base starting to turn a little bit, and we've seen it in the stands, but we also see it on the message boards because there's another Hall of Fame message boards post from Sikkim 903. Dave Aranda's coaching is directly limiting the spread of the gospel and Christ's kingdom. Has Baylor brass thought about this?
I don't want to get too nerdy here. I was a minor in world religions in college, actually. Like kind of the 2 seed theory of baptism, like when they came into Texas. And I think right now Dave Aranda may be bad seed. If we're on the 2 seed theory here, I think he may be on the bad seed side. I just think there's some guys who aren't head coaches, and Dave Aranda to me is seemingly kind of making himself look like somebody who's probably a better coordinator than a coach. And I don't think that there's any shame in that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just need change, right? Like you could have ran this 10 different times in different timelines, and maybe it goes different after 2021. And there's a way in which this isn't all on Aranda, but it hasn't. Like it just has not been good. It's been too up and down. And we talk about it all the time. Like college football is measured against your rivals. And if you are Baylor, your rivals are where you want to be is top in the Big 12 in your state. And then you can expand onto that. But you want to be top dog in the Big 12 in your state. And for a long time, Baylor was, at least right there with TCU. But now Tech has clearly taken over the mantle because of the way that they spin. That's not really on Dave Aranda. That's just a circumstance that's happened. But what concerns me is the record against TCU, which I think is like 1-5, and then what's happening in Houston. Because if you're a Baylor fan, you look at what's happening in Houston, you go like, well, why can't we do that? Like that's year 2. They didn't have a roster. They didn't develop. They don't have Sawyer Robertson or anything over there. Like they've gone and they've done. So I don't know. I just think if you're 4-4, that stadium, you're going into a bye week, which you don't want. If you're on a 2-game losing streak, right? You don't want the extra days to have to sit there and answer questions. I worry about what McLean Stadium will look like on November 1st.
Oh yeah.
If they're 4-4. And I just don't know how, as an administration, you can see that and go like, well, we got to see if we can do it one more year. Like, I just don't, you're losing more than what that buyout is.
I like these stakes. If they lose this game, our position is the Dave Aranda era is over. It could happen mid-season. It could happen after the season. It could happen at the end of 2026. But if you want our reasoning of why it's over, just look at the 8 podcasts we've done from September through October, where we talk about this every time. Okay. Do you want to go Texas or Texas Tech first for this next segment?
Let's go Texas because they have a more of a chance to lose.
Yeah. Texas travels to Starkville to play Mississippi State. Longhorns are favored by 6.5. Steve Sarkisian is not giving up play calling duties. That's where Texas season is right now. And the call is coming because people point to Ryan Day at Ohio State, gave up play calling duties in the spring 2024, and then they won a national championship. Texas points per drive and success rate chart. This is something Tom Fornelli at CBS tweeted out. Again, not smart enough to know exactly what it means. I just see that Texas is by Wisconsin and Oklahoma State. That's who the Power 4 company they're keeping right now. What do you make of this, Craven, on if Steve Sarkisian, the calls for him to give up play calling?
I'm torn because in theory, I get what Sarkisian is saying. He got this job at Texas because of his play calling ability. However, we have seen other coaches with a lot of success as offensive coordinators come to the conclusion as head coaches that maybe there's too much on my plate, a little too much dip on my chip. And Ryan Day did that pretty recently, and look at what Ohio State's done. It doesn't mean that Sarkisian can't have a hand in the offensive game plan. Like the idea that Ryan Day is just not chilling in the offensive game plan room is wrong, right? Like He has as much say as ever on what Ohio State's going to do, but just down to down in game, it's just different. And coming up with a script and all, like there's just a lot that goes into being a head coach. We talked about it on Sunday. The job is different than it used to be. Like being a head coach and a coordinator 10 years ago was much easier because you didn't have a lot of the outside. You didn't have the NIL and the roster management and just all the just nonsense that goes with being a head coach, even during the season nowadays. I think it's outdated. I think there's a reason that there hasn't been a head coach who's called his own plays, win a national championship since Jimbo, when he had Jameis Winston. You saw Nick Saban kind of give away defensive play calling, as his career kind of took off at Alabama and he got with Kirby Smart and down the line. Steve Sarkisian knows more about offense than I ever will. Steve Sarkisian probably knows more about offense, probably better play caller than 95% of the country. But is Steve Sarkisian the head coach / play caller better than 95% of the offensive coordinators that you can get out there?
And I'm torn too, because I guess he's hired because of his offensive play calling, but he's also hired to bring that Alabama Nick Saban culture to Texas. And if he can't, I believe he's done that Alabama culture part, but doing that culture makes it harder to call plays too. Like there's a lot on the head coach, but then also how much of the offense is on Steve Sarkisian when Connor Robertson has a 30.9 PFF pass pro grade and Nick Brooks has a 14.1.
So that's where I think the real issue for Texas is this year. It's not the play calling. It's it was, I don't think their players is as good as they thought they were.
I agree.
Right. I think that the evaluation was the problem, whether it be in recruiting when they first brought him there, whether it be in the spring or whether it be last season when you're seeing some of those backups. I think Texas sorely needed more additions through the portal, and whether they overly trusted their evals or they just didn't give enough eyes to what the backups were last year as they were playing for a national championship. It just slipped past them maybe. And all of a sudden it's January 10th. They lose to Ohio State. Most of the guys in the portal are already gone. You just got to roll with what you have. Either way, I think the failure was in personnel more so than in scheme.
I thought about it more since you brought this up on the last podcast, how them playing so deep in the postseason messed up the transfer portal for them. That just goes to show the college calendar is so screwed up. I do think I think even if they knew that their offensive line was not going to be near as good as it was in the college football playoff semifinal year, they couldn't do much about it because the transfer portal had already passed them by when they're playing Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. This
is a little bit different, but I'll never forget Sonny Dykes and TCU in that Georgia national championship game. Because I've known Sonny for a while. He's a pretty fun guy to talk to about just like college sports in general. He made this comment of, I used to make fun of those SEC staffs for how big they were. Like, why do you need 40 staffers? Why do you need 30 staffers? Like, this is ridiculous. It's just hubris. You're trying to give your friends money. Like, what are we doing here? And then I played in a national championship game while the portal was open and was like, holy crap, this is why they have 30 or 40 staffers. Yeah. Georgia didn't have to send coaches back home to recruit during that week leading into the championship game in LA. TCU did. And so I just think, and Texas obviously is closer to Georgia in terms of staff. They have plenty of staff. Brandon Harris, all those guys do a really good job. But I do think the calendar makes it hard for those four teams left. And Kurt Signetti had a great quote yesterday about how he doesn't like the new rules of the transfer portal. And he doesn't like that 3 or 4 coaches who complained about kind of having to do the portal during the playoff made the rules change. I'd imagine one of those is Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah.
And so like I maybe he needs to give up offensive play calling. Maybe it's the scheme. I think it's more likely that this is just a personnel issue, and that if they had a better offensive line, some more weapons around Arch not playing well either. If they had a quarterback that they could count on, that they could really go trust, I think the scheme takes care of itself if the personnel is better. They just completely whiffed on the offensive personnel.
Speaking of Arch, here's a blind resume of 2 quarterbacks. Quarterback A has 1,400 passing yards, a 60.3% completion rate, 12 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Quarterback B has 1,500 passing yards, 67% completion rate, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. One of these is Arch and one of these is Mississippi State quarterback Blake Shapen. Which one's which?
Is Arch B?
No, Arch is Arch is A. So he has 100 less passing yards, 7% less completion percentage points, and has 3 more touchdowns than Shapen.
And Jeff Levy's a head coach that calls plays at Mississippi State. So this is going to be 2 head coaches that are calling offensive plays there. Blake Shapen, blast from the past, former Baylor quarterback. Playing at Mississippi State's hard. Arizona State lost early in the season at Mississippi State. It's one of those teams that you hope you get at home just because Starkville and those cowbells, all that kind of stuff. But this clearly comes down to, can Texas score enough points to win this football game? The defense is 4th in the nation in net points per drive. The offense is 67th. I think if you're a UT, if you're Sark, you just got to figure out a way to score 24 points. If you can get 24 points, I think you win this football game. If you're in the teens like you were against Kentucky, I think Mississippi State, especially at home, is good enough to steal one off you.
And that defense, too. Shout out to Colin Simmons because he is back in a big way. I know at the beginning of the year, we were kind of like, where's Colin Simmons? He's 7th nationally with 7 sacks and SEC co-defensive lineman of the week, back-to-back weeks. In 3 SEC games, he has 6.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. He's a monster.
Yeah, he's
really
good.
Again.
He's really good. Really good. I wish, I was talking to this to a buddy who was over here on Saturday when I was watching the games. It's like, can we just turn the channel when Texas has the ball offensively and turn it back to you? Because they are a joy to watch defensively. Just an absolute joy to watch. Yeah. They are miserable to watch offensively. It's just not fun. And, maybe they can get back to what they were in that third quarter against Oklahoma and Trey Wisner can run the football. But I think it's fair to say that Texas is just an incredibly inconsistent offensive football team, bordering on just a bad offensive football team. And when you go on the road in the SEC, you need some points. And I don't think 16 will win you this one.
Because I was going over Mississippi State's schedule yesterday. They beat Arizona State. They lose by 6 to Tennessee in a game that almost went to overtime, if not did go to overtime. Texas A&M was the only one that got away from them. They also lost to Florida by 2 points. Florida kicked Texas' ass. This is like a sneak. I don't know if it's even sneaky anymore. They're a good football team. And this is going to be they're better than Kentucky. That's for sure.
Yeah, they are far better than Kentucky. CFB Graphs only gives Texas a 55% chance to win this football game. They have it 23.68 to 20.84. So they have Mississippi State covering. They have this being a field goal football game. I think the good news for the Longhorns is you can count on your defense. You can count on special teams, and typically those travel. And so, I just think you got to get to 24 points. If you can figure out a way to get to 24 points, you got it. And you might need the defense or special teams to chip in 7.
Yeah, I don't think either team's going to have fun on Saturday. They say, I hope both teams have fun. I don't think either team will.
Yeah, because Mississippi State's not that great. I mean, Mississippi State's 99th in quality drive rate.
And Fluff Buffalo's out too. They're running back.
Yes, you're right. 90th in drop back. They're not the greatest passing team in the world. They are a pretty good running football team. But as you said, Fluff isn't just an all-time great name, by the way. Not in the game, so they're not going to be able to run the ball very well, I don't think, against this Texas defense. It's going to be low scoring. I don't know. I don't have the total in front of me right now, but I would lean under probably just on this one. I would lean under on every Texas game for the rest of the year, honestly.
All right, let's go to Texas Tech. Number 14, Texas Tech hosts Oklahoma State, 3 p.m. on ESPNU. Red Raiders favored by 38.5. Look, I don't have much on the football field per se to talk about this game, but I think the big story is the tortillas. Once again, Texas Tech AD Kirby Hocutt and Joey McGuire have joined together to say no more throwing them. Tradition's been around since the 1990s. Here's a little bit of timeline from Dave Wilson at ESPN, friend of the program. So in the preseason, the ADs voted 15-1 to assess 15-yard penalty after 2 warnings for objects thrown on the field. Guess who the lone dissenter was?
Yeah.
Hocutt.
Yeah.
He said rules can change, but traditions will not. Well, now there's 1 warning and $100,000 fine, which is kind of like a key reserve on the football team. That's like a second string wide receiver probably, or second string offensive lineman. So Texas Tech's cracking down.
Yeah, that's a whole Sunday for Cody Campbell. I go both ways on this one. This isn't great podcasting. This is why I could probably be better at my job if I had really strong stances one way or the other. But I am just somebody who believes 2 things can be true. One, I feel like this is stupid. I feel like this is mountain out of a molehill. I don't understand why this has become this huge deal. Like it's a pastry, right? Like it's a tortilla being thrown up in the air. Like what are we even talking about here? Like how did this become such a big issue? And it's because they made it one, right? It's like when they knew when the government makes a new law and all of a sudden people are getting arrested for it. It's like, well, this wasn't a problem. And now all of a sudden it is. And so I don't get why the Big 12 has made it into this huge deal. I don't know how we got here, why we got here. But since we are here, if you're a Tech fan, you just have to eat it. But just eat the tortilla. Maybe that's what you do.
Don't throw it. Eat it.
Just everybody bring a tortilla and you just chomp on tortillas in the sidelines or whatever. Throw it at each other. Have a food fight in the stands or something like that. You can't cost a team that is this good. Right? Like if Texas Tech's 3-3 right now or 4-3 right now, and they're just a middle of the pack Big 12 team, throw your tortillas. Who cares about the penalty? Right? But you're trying to get to the Big 12 championship game. You're trying to win a conference championship since the first time since the 1950s outright. You're trying to get to the college football playoff. You have one of the best teams in the country. I think you just gotta eat this one and just let it go and see what happens over the offseason and if cooler heads can prevail and they can come up with a better system here.
I agree, but it would be very funny if the thing that holds Texas Tech back from the Big 12 championship is because the fans rioted and threw tortillas.
I honestly think it's a bigger financial deal than a penalty deal.
Oh, 100%.
And if you're a Texas Tech student and your billionaire donor's got more money than God, who are like, the 20-year-old me would probably still throw a tortilla. Right. And like Tech fans I think they would agree with this, are some of the most rebellious group of people you'll ever meet. That's why I love Tech fans. Like they are a middle finger fan base. Right. And so I do think that there is going to be a minority. I don't even know. I wonder what the split is going to be of people who are like, F this, I'm still throwing my tortilla. Like that's what we do at Texas Tech. You can't tell me what to do. And I lean that way in my personality as well. So I totally see it. I just think you got to suck this one up and just hopefully over the off season, there can be some real talks of like, how can you keep this tradition alive without it impacting anybody else? Because it does seem like this is just so stupid that this is what we're talking about. Not you and me, but just as a college football.
I wonder how many Texas Tech fans show up to this game with like a whole roll of tortillas, not knowing there's a new rule about it.
Right.
Like they just don't. They're like, wait, what? We're not doing this anymore?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. On the football field, though, I think the only interesting part of this football game, because if you look at Oklahoma State stuff, they're like in the 130s of everything except for like rushing defense.
Super bleak.
That's the only thing that they're like decent, and they're like 72nd in that, so they're not even good there. But I'm of the opinion that Texas Tech needs Behren Morton to win the Big 12, but I am not silly enough to think that they need them to beat Oklahoma State. And so you keep them on the sideline and bubble wrap. You give them another week to rest and get healthier, and you get Will Hammond in there, and you allow him to do some stuff that maybe he's not great at. Like that is what I would, if I'm Mac Leftwich, I work on my second and third pitches here, right?
Yes.
Like we know what Will Hammond can do well. Let's work on some of the stuff that maybe he struggles with. Let's get that on tape. Let's get those reps in a game that is low in security, because you should be able to win this one pretty easily, and also get Cam Dickey and Williams and those guys back involved in the run game.
No QB run from Will Hammond.
Right. Handicap yourself. Be like, after we build a 17-point lead or whatever, we are not going to do X or Y or Z, right? Like we are only going to do these things once we have a comfortable lead. I don't think coaches think that way, but that's how I would go about it.
Okay, let's do our last Big 12 team, TCU at West Virginia, 5 p.m. on ESPN+. Horned Frogs favored by 15.5. I think I'm taking West Virginia spread here. There's just something about this game on ESPN+. They're in West Virginia. Like, I could see this one getting weird.
Yeah, this is the quintessential trap game. If you're the Horned Frogs, you just played a 6-hour marathon of a football game with 3 delays against Baylor in the rivalry. That one got weird towards the end. But yeah, playing at West Virginia, coaches say it's one of the hardest places to play, but they're not any good. Like this is one of those where TCU should be able to have success. I think they found their recipe last week when Convoy Barnes is healthy and they give him the rock. That takes some pressure off of Josh Hoover, and this offense is a lot better. Turnovers are the thing. Like turnovers are starting to like creep back into the TCU lexicon. Like they had done a good job at the back half of 2024 of eliminating a lot of that. I think early in 2025 they were better. But that Arizona State game kind of started a little bit of a trend here, and it's continued even with the win over Baylor. So I think if you're the Frogs on the road in a weird environment, you just got to take care of the football, run the ball, build a lead, and then go home. Because West Virginia is not a team that's built to like storm back on you. If you can build a lead, you're cake. You're good.
Yeah, we mentioned it on the recap pod, but Josh Hoover has 3 turnovers that have led directly to a touchdown for the defense in the last 2 games. It was a fumble 6 on a lateral play, a pick 6, and then he had a fumble 6 against Baylor. Also, so I know I mentioned Sonny Dykes standing on the table for his team and saying we are in the last 3.5 years the winningest team in the Big 12. And I hope, just so everyone remembers that, why did he say 3.5? Was that just because he's been there for 3.5 years now? We're having this season. Okay.
Yeah. Since
I was wondering if he was cutting off something like they went 0-2 or something. And he's like, since that time, we're.
No. He's saying since he got there.
Okay.
And I think that's valid, but they're all jumbled up. Like it's not like there's a big, it's like by a game or so. Like everybody's kind of like right there. At 12-0 obviously helps that stat in 2022. If he started in 2023, I wonder where TCU would rank. I should go look that up. But I think TCU is a better team than the fan base thinks. It may be a worse team than what I thought going into the season. They're kind of in that middle. Like they're not a great team. They're probably not a Big 12 championship contending team. They're not bad either. They're probably going to win 7, 8 games again. Although after this game, their schedule gets tough, like really, really tough. And so this one is super important to not have that let down and to take care of business. Because after that, let me pull it up real quick. After that, you have an off week, and then it's Iowa State, at BYU, at Houston, at home against Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
And so you got to get this one, get to bowl eligibility, and then hopefully you go 2-2 down the stretch, get to 8-4. And I think that's a pretty good season.
Okay, let's go to their Iron Skillet rival, SMU. They are at Wake Forest, 11 a.m. on the CW on the crosswalk. SMU favored by 3.5 points here. So Wake Forest is 4-2, but their wins are Kennesaw State, West Carolina, 2-5 Virginia Tech, and 1-7 Oregon State. The bottom of the ACC is so bad.
So bad. Florida State stinks. I don't know how Mike Norvell still has a job. Well, the buyout is why Mike Norvell still has a job.
Because it's going to cost $1 bajillion to get him gone.
We talked about trap games earlier. This is the definition of a trap game. Sandwiched between a trip to Clemson and a home game against Miami. You win on the road against Clemson. And Clemson's not a great team, but who cares if you're SMU?
They have that mystique still. And it was in Happy Death Valley, whatever they call it, the other Death Valley.
They used to be going to Tulsa and to Temple, and now they're going to Clemson and winning football games like that. That is a great step forward for this SMU football team and this program, no matter what the Clemson Tigers are on the football field. But Wake is plucky enough to get this one. Like I am genuinely concerned for SMU here. This is going to be a culture win for the Mustangs if they can pull it off, because it is exactly what a trap is. And the bottom of the ACC is bad, but I think Wake is in the middle. Like I think they're good enough to win this football game if SMU doesn't play well. The thing that I've been most impressed by with SMU over the last month is the emergence of their pass rush. Cameron Robertson, Isaiah Smith, those guys aren't the high-end talent that Elijah Roberts and some of the players that they had last year were. They were backups for a reason, but they've gotten better and better as the season has gone on. And they've had back-to-back games where 3 games in a row, really, where they've gotten to get more sacks. They've gotten more tackles for loss. Scott Simons has really turned that unit around. So if you don't turn the ball over and you execute in the red zone, SMU wins this one. But I do think that there's a possibility that we look up in the third quarter and we're like, holy crap, Wake Forest is up by 7, because they're a good enough team to win this one. Well,
that pass rush, too, is a testament to development on that SMU staff. And we talked about it with Texas, not developing those guys. SMU has done that. So credit to Lashley and Simons. And you're going to see Lashley and Simons both get some head coaching buzz because I believe it's one of the best coaching staffs in Texas, if not the best.
CFBgraphs.com has this projected at 24.86 for SMU, 24.56 for Wake Forest.
Wow.
Like the analytics really think that Wake Forest has a chance here. They're at home. I'm an eyes and vibes guy, so I don't know if I buy it. I think SMU is better than their numbers suggest. I think SMU post TCU has been a different football team, and obviously those numbers that are still in these models are using what the defense was against Baylor, what the defense was against TCU. I don't think Wake Forest can threaten SMU secondary in the same way that Baylor and TCU could. And so I like the Mustangs here, but it is a letdown moment. And in gambling, you talk a lot about like sometimes you're picking games and sometimes you're picking spots. And if you're somebody who's picking spots, this is one to look at Wake Forest because this is kind of one of those spots that teams typically have. Yeah. They're 18 to 22-year-old kids, right? And you just beat Clemson. You've heard about it all week, how great you are. You got Miami in a week. You're undefeated in ACC play. What's Wake Forest? You got to be focused. That's why I say this is a culture win if SMU can pull it off.
This one's a Dalmatian with all those spots on it for this game. Right. Okay, light week in the group of 5 conferences. Let's go Rice hosting UConn first because I think this will be the better game. 2 p.m. on ESPN2. Dude, ESPN2. Do I have this right? Because that's a lot of games on ESPN2. And we got Baylor versus Cincinnati. 3 p.m. on ESPN2. Hold on.
It's got to be ESPN Plus.
I'll look this up. Anyway, UConn is pretty good this year. So this is, I think like Rice and Texas State are both teams that through 3 games into the year, I mentally checked off they were going to hit their over and forgot about them. And now like, oh my God, they might not hit the over.
Yeah, Rice just needs one more, and it's hard to find it on the schedule, brother.
Like, it's ESPN Plus, by the way. This is ESPN Plus. I had it down wrong.
UAB might be the last chance left, right? Because after this, it's Memphis, UAB, Idle, North Texas, UCF or USF. So schedule picks up. UConn was one of those before the season. You kind of circled as a possibility. I don't know if you played spades growing up or still play spades, but it's like I take 6 in a pop, right? Like. I thought UConn was one of those pops along with like FAU. They already lost to FAU. And so to get to 4 wins, this one feels like a very important one. Maybe UAB gets it. For those who don't know, the over-under was 3.5 wins. They're already there at 3. So they just need one more. You think that – so what I found interesting about Rice right now is I think the offense kind of stinks. The offense – square peg, round hole. They're trying to run a completely different. I mean, going from Mike Bloomgren's offense to Scott Abel's offense with the same players, like that was always going to be tough. The defense had played really well. Like they had played pretty well. John Kay as the defensive coordinator. And then they gave 61 points in 3 quarters to an UTSA offense that's not all that great. How bad is that defense? Was that a blip? Was that just UTSA catching lightning in a bottle? And that was just their kind of one-off figure it out game. And Rice is going to get back to playing solid defense. Or is that a sign that like the levees have broke, people have figured out that defense and they're going to give up 30 or 40 a game because they won't win again unless the defense can rebound?
I lean towards blip. I think John Kay is too good of a defensive coach to not come out with more adjustments. And I think UTSA was a little bit backs against the wall after that Temple loss, and they're playing at home where they always win. And I think they just kind of took advantage of Rice in that spot there. A little bit. So but you're right. If they don't fix it, like they're done. And this, what looked like a sure bet, the overhitting, we both were on it, is going to be toast.
Yeah.
So huge game for us. Huge game.
I thought UAB was a guarantee, but then they fired Dilfer and now they're better.
Yeah. That could have been dead cat bounce though.
Yeah.
That could have been just, they played inspired the week after their coach leaves. And then now they're back to being not good.
Yeah. That's the hope for the Owls.
Okay, last game on the docket, North Texas at Charlotte. Also, more on UTSA in a bit because I know it's a light group of 5 week, and Craven had a column we're going to discuss. But North Texas at Charlotte. This is Friday night, 6 p.m., ESPN2. Mean Green are favored by 27.5. because Charlotte is 1-6. They have won 3 home games since joining the FBS in 2022. And I saw this tweet from a Charlotte Observer writer, Hunter Bailey. This was during a 49-14 loss to Temple. I've covered some bad football through the years. This is the worst. So that's the update on Charlotte.
Yeah, first-year head coach there. My co-host for the Aggie War Pod, Jay Arnold, very smart football guy. Before the season, he was talking about how like Charlotte was a sleeping giant. I was like, they're not. And I've got that one right. Yeah, I mean, this one seems simple for North Texas. Like, don't shoot yourself in the foot and you're okay. Actually, you'd probably have to shoot yourself in the foot 7 times.
You'd have to shoot every toe off.
Right. You'd have to keep going back. You'd have to reload the shotgun and keep going back at yourself for this one to mess up. This is they've had 2 tough games in a row, or 2 not tough games. They blew out UTSA, but 2 kind of like high emotionally charged football games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
You're undefeated at home against the USF on national TV on a Friday night, and then homecoming against your rival who, most of those guys on campus, I don't think all of those guys on campus hadn't beaten coaches and players together. And so they win those 2, or they go 1-1 in those 2. And now you got to go on the road to Charlotte. And that, maybe the theme of this week is kind of trap game situation. I don't think Charlotte's got any bait to put in it. I don't think they can set a trap if they wanted to. So if you're North Texas, I don't, maybe this is famous last words. And on Sunday, where I don't know how you would possibly lose this game. Like, this seems like get your stats up, go score 45 and all that.
It reminds me, my parents have a French bulldog at home who is 10 at this point. So he's getting up there in age. And like, when he goes outside to go to the bathroom in the grass patch, there's like a lot of bunny rabbits in the neighborhood. And when he was a younger fella, those bunnies used to have to run away a bit. And now they're just chilling in the grass patch. Like because my dog sees them, doesn't do anything about them. Like there is no trap. Yeah. He's not going to do anything.
Yeah,
that's like Charlotte is right now.
That's what Charlotte is, an old bulldog.
An old bulldog. Okay. A light week on G5. So let's talk about Craven, your column that came out this morning on TexasFootball.com. Well, Tuesday morning, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. What's wrong with UTSA football? So you dove into the numbers here. Kind of give an elevator pitch of your column that's out.
Yeah, so I think the issues plaguing UTSA right now are twofold. They are road games. UTSA is 1-9 on the road since the start of 2024. And they are bad in second halves. And specifically, they are bad on the road in the second half. And they're 10-10 since the start of 2024. They have led at halftime in 4 of those games. And if they were 14-6 since the start of 2024, that's not as good as it was before, but I think that'd be more acceptable to the UTSA fan base and kind of an understandable drop. It's not that UTSA took a drop back from winning 10, 11 games every year. It's that they went down to winning only 6, right? Like, there wasn't kind of a middle ground. It went from elite to, are we even going to get to a bowl game? And it's been the second halves. In 2021, they were a plus 4.1 in the second half. In 22, they were plus 1.7. In 23, they were plus 6.2. In the last 2 years, they are minus 3.4 in the second half last year. They are minus 6.6 in the second half this year. They were outscored 31-3 by North Texas in the second half. They were outscored by Temple 24-7 in the second half. They're just not making adjustments. Every single year that Jeff Traylor's been there, including this one, UTSA has on average outscored their opponents in the first half. They are winning first halves in 2024. They're winning first halves in 2025. So the week plan is good. This is what it tells me. That like the Sunday through Thursday plan works. It's what's happening at halftime. The other coaches are winning the halftime adjustment battle, specifically on the road. And those 2 things, I think, come back to coaching. Those things are about culture. Can you travel? Jeff Traylor likes to say all the time, like, the triangle travels, right? It's not anymore. They were 13-5 on the road from 21 to 23. And the problem is that UTSA was never blowing teams out. It was always a 1-possession football team. They were just winning all of those coin flips. And so when you hear those numbers and you say, well, it's only like a 6-point difference in the second half, that's it. That's the whole thing. Like, that's the difference between being 9-3 and being 6-6. And if you're UTSA, 9-3 is gold because you're going to lose a non-conference game or two, right? You're going to get body bagged. Like 9-3, you're in conference contention. 6-6, you are fighting for a bowl game. If you look at UTSA's schedule, I don't know if I would pick them to make a bowl right now. They need to win 3 of these next 5 games. Let me read them to you. Tulane, USF, Charlotte, East Carolina, Army. If we give them Charlotte, I mean, we'll even give them East Carolina. You got to steal one against Tulane and Army. Now, the good news is 3 of those 5 are at home, and the Charlotte game's on the road. And you want the Charlotte game on the road because you're probably going to win that no matter where it's at. You are 8-1 at home since 2024. They beat Memphis, who was a ranked team last year, in the Alamo Dome to kind of start a run. I think if you're Traylor and co, you're kind of pointing to that game as kind of a mirror to this Tulane game coming up on October 31st on a Thursday. But Jeff Traylor, in his 30-odd years of being a head coach, has never had a losing season. Not once as a head coach. This one might be it.
It's an unbelievable stat. He's never had a losing season. Just shows what type of coach he is. But you're right. The markers of this team with the penalties and getting outscored in the second half is marks of a team that's not making adjustments and is not well coached in the game. I think Traylor said this, so I might just be ripping off his own quote to analyze his own team. But it's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think. So when I look back at those UTSA years with Frank Harris and Rashad Wisdom, he was like, dude, they were smoking kids. Like, they were so good. They were unstoppable. And you go back and dive in the numbers, which your column did, the margin is always razor thin. And that was what made Rashad Wisdom and Frank Harris so special, is like they would lead you through those close wins. And now they're not. Yeah,
there. I think you had probably, you can just look down the road at the rival at Texas State. Right? They've lost 3 games this year, and it's by like 1 point, 3 point, and 6 points, and 2 of those are in overtime. Like, in the G5, the talent is pretty equal. It comes down to like coaching, execution, a couple of like 2 or 3 players and adjustments at halftime. And UTSA used to have both of those things. They used to have the 2 or 3 players that could go make plays. They had a Sincere McCormick. They had a Rashad Wisdom. They had a Frank Harris and Joshua Cephas. And like, they had guys that went and made plays in big moments, and they had the coaching chops to go make adjustments, and they were out coaching other teams. It feels like now they don't. Who are those 2 or 3 guys that are going to go make plays for UTSA on offense or defense? And they're losing the adjustment battle at halftime. And that leads to going from top of the mountain in the G5 in the state to being probably 3rd in the pecking order, G5 in the state. Like, it was never Bama dominance, right? It was never just like they're winning 40-7 every week and just kicking teams' asses or whatever. They were just playing big in big moments and not shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and drops. And like, they've just turned into the antithesis of that football team. And if you're Traylor, even if it's not one person's fault, sometimes you just got to shake the tree. And I wonder if the bottom will fall out enough this year to where he does something that I don't think Traylor likes to do. And that is kind of go against his guys. And he is, we've talked about this on this podcast. Your best strengths can be your worst strengths. And that's true in life. It's true in jobs. And I think Traylor's best strength is his loyalty. And I think it's kind of the undoing right now of the UTSA dominance. And maybe they just need some, it's like inbreeding, right? Like, sometimes you need some DNA from the outside, right? Like, I think maybe the message has been so insular and so inside that building for so long that maybe they need a couple of folks from the outside to come in with some fresh ideas and some new ideas and just kind of shake it up and change the messaging. I wonder if it's just time for that.
Yeah, because inbreeding starts off all fine and dandy, but then you get down to the grandchild and it's like, oh my God.
Right. And I think that's where we're at right now with UTSA. Was when things are going well, why change the messaging? Like, I get why you hire from within, keep it rolling. But now that things are kind of off the tracks and you've hit a few bumps, well, maybe bring in a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a new coach here or there. I don't know, a new strength coach, anything, just to shake the tree a little bit. I don't think Traylor's at all in danger.
But I just think that maybe it's time for some new messaging or some new ideas.
Yep. Well, it's a great column up now on TexasFootball.com. Go check it out. And that's going to wrap it up for our Week 9 preview. We'll be back on Monday morning recapping all the games, a trap week for the state of Texas. Craven, any closing thoughts before we head on out of here?
Nope. Like we said at the top, excited to get to Louisiana to watch that game. I'm driving. So that'll be fun. It's not my favorite drive to go east. I like to drive. But I'd rather go west on I-10 than east on I-10. But we'll make it. We'll get there. We'll get through Beaumont and Orange and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get there. It's just the driving through Houston.
Yeah, the driving through Houston's, dude. Brutal. For our rising game of the weeks, we have driven through Houston about 4 times this year, and it's a tough drive. I'm sorry, H-Town.
Yeah. Driving through Waco, driving through Houston for different reasons. Just bane of my existence.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, for senior writer Mike Craven, I am Carter Yates signing off for our Week 9 preview.